There are over 600 active Linux distributions out there, but which one should you pick? My name is Misha, I've used Linux for over 12 years and I've helped over 15,000 people into high-paid tech careers using Linux. And in this video, I'm going to share, based on my experience as a senior DevOps engineer, which distro you should pick as a beginner, which ones are a complete waste of time, and which one to pick if you want to land a six-figure tech job. So let's jump in. So the first distro I want to share with you is Linux Mint. This is one of the most popular distros in the world. And one way to find out which are the most popular distros is to go to distrowatch.com and then go to the page hit ranking. And then you will see that in the last 12 months, Linux Mint is the second most popular in terms of page hits. So that says something. And on the About page, it says, one of the most popular desktop Linux distributions and used by millions of people. So it's actually a very solid alternative. And this is one that I would recommend, especially if you are a casual user. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about if you are a casual user just wanting to switch away from Windows or macOS, or I'll take the perspective of someone who actually is interested in landing a tech career, because that's what I did. I was a nurse 6 years ago, and now I'm working as a senior DevOps engineer and career coach, and all of that has been made possible by switching to Linux at some point. So that is the frame that I'm taking here. And if you are just a casual user who wants to change from Windows or macOS, this is a really good alternative. And this is what Linux Mint looks like. I'm using this really cool service called Distro. I didn't know about this until this morning, literally, as I was preparing for this video. But you can literally go and try out all of these hundreds of distributions, which is really cool. I strongly recommend checking it out. I'm not affiliated or anything, I just randomly discovered this. But they basically let you test out distros in the browser like this, and that's what I'm doing now. That's also why it's looking a little bit grainy, but that's okay if we're just trying it out. So if you're coming from Windows, then you are used to having your clock in the bottom right. You have your network settings, your sound settings right here, and then of course you have your start menu, right? Well, this looks very familiar. If you're coming from Windows, you have your applications neatly gathered here. There are some applications included here already. There's the equivalent of Windows Paint, pretty neat. And again, I'm just running this in a browser, which is fantastic. And also the file exploration system also should feel really familiar to you, right? You have your home directory. Let's check out your documents. You can create a new document. And if, let's say, I'm going to create this new document here. Here we go. Open a document, and I can just easily start creating a document. So this is a pretty foolproof way to install Linux somewhere and get going with it. And I think that's why Linux Mint is so popular as well. So Linux Mint is actually the distro I would recommend if you are a casual user who just wants to get away from macOS or Windows. But if you're already working as a software engineer or you're already in the tech industry and you want to move to Linux, then there's another one that I would recommend, which is going to be the next distro. Now, real quick, if you enjoy this video or any other of my videos, please subscribe to the channel. It's a completely free way to support me, but each of these videos cost me $700 to produce. I have editors that I have to pay. I have to pay for designers and everything. So it actually is a high cost for me to produce these videos. So please, it's a free way to support the channel. We're almost at 100K right now. So please show your support by just subscribing, and it really helps me out. Thank you so much. So the next distro I will recommend is Ubuntu. And in this case, Ubuntu Desktop, because you're probably going to be using this as a daily driver. And the reason why I would recommend Ubuntu Desktop over Linux Mint, for example, is because there are many enterprises that are using Ubuntu Server as their Linux distro. So if you learn how to use Ubuntu Desktop, then at the same time, you are going to be getting experience with the Ubuntu distro. And this is important if you are a junior or someone who is transitioning into tech, that you want to get as much experience as you can and relevant experience as you can to put on your CV and to put on in your projects. So if you are daily driving Ubuntu and you do that for a year, then you can literally say, I have 1 year of experience with managing an Ubuntu system, right? So this is how I think about this stuff. So Ubuntu is, of course, it's also used by millions of people. It is also integrated into WSL if you're using Windows. So there is a really nice on-ramp for Ubuntu Desktop. So here I have the latest version of Ubuntu Desktop loaded. This is version 26. And the first thing you'll notice is that this is a little bit different than the Linux Mint in the sense that there is no taskbar in the bottom, but it's on the left. And of course you can configure this. But if you're coming from Windows, then this is a little bit more of a jarring experience because it feels a little bit different, right? So that is why Linux Mint is such a good one if you're a casual user who just wants to be familiar on Linux. And this one already is a little bit more jarring, but it's fine. And then again, you have everything you need. It's pretty easy to navigate. You have your files. And also there is a sort of start menu experience, but it's not this familiar start menu where you are scrolling through it like this. Like all of a sudden you're clicking here and then you're getting your applications like this. Like there's no real difference here, but if you are just a beginner, this makes a big difference, right? It's a bit of a jarring, a uncomfortable, different experience, which you have to take into account. So you want to make this as smooth as possible for yourself. But it includes all sorts of applications right out of the box. It's a fully functional operating system. And the good thing about Linux Mint and Ubuntu Desktop is that it just freaking works anywhere. Anywhere you install this, this will work. All of your drivers will work. Your microphone, your webcam will work. And that is why these are so good. But as I said earlier, the real advantage of Ubuntu Desktop is that you are getting experience with Ubuntu Server at the same time. So if you open up your terminal on Ubuntu Desktop, there is essentially not much difference from running a production server, right? So you're already getting experience with how a production Linux system feels like. You can navigate the terminal just like you would on a production server. And this is exactly why I chose to use Ubuntu for my free 8-hour Linux course. This is a course that teaches you how to use Linux with a deep focus on the command line. And the best part is you can get access to it completely for free. It is a free 8-hour course, which is the same content that my paid mentorship students get. And it also includes a community with over 5,000 members. It is super active. You can get this completely for free. It's my gift to you. There's lots of bonuses in there too. The link will be down in the description. Check it out if you want to go deep on Ubuntu, Ubuntu Server, and learn how to use Linux like a pro. Check out the link in the description below. It's completely for free. The next distro I would recommend is Fedora. Fedora is the one that you see me using right now, actually. So I don't have to load this in the browser. I'm actually running this for over 6 months now already, actually. And Fedora is a super stable, very elaborate workstation distribution. It works really well. And it also comes in many different flavors and spins. So you can really go crazy on this and try out a lot of different ones, and it's all going to be Fedora. The good thing with Fedora is that it is created and maintained by Red Hat, as you see here. Now, Red Hat is a company that provides enterprise Linux. And this is, if you are a government agency, for example, and you're running thousands of Linux servers, then there are these paid distribution services that are going to provide service for you. They're going to keep them secure, and they're going to be making sure that all of your applications are running securely, right? And this is a service that Red Hat, but also Canonical provide. And Canonical is the creator of Ubuntu. So there's these large companies that provide these business services. But the good thing about this is that both Canonical and Red Hat provide these consumer Linux distributions, these desktop distributions, which means that they are being maintained and created by these companies that are making lots of money, like billions of dollars. So if you want to try Fedora, then I would recommend starting with Fedora Workstation. Or if you're coming from Windows, then check out KDE Plasma Desktop, because I've heard from people who come from Windows that they feel right at home when they use KDE. So feel free to check that out if you're coming from Windows. And yeah, Fedora is super stable. It is managed and maintained by Red Hat, so you know that you're getting quality here. And you're also getting some experience with the Red Hat ecosystem already. So strongly recommend to look into Fedora. The next distro we're going to check out is CachyOS. And this one is actually on the top here, even above Linux Mint. So last 12 months, 3 months, they're all at the top. Now this makes me a little bit suspicious because we're just looking at page rankings here, right? We're not looking at verified users. So maybe there is something going on where they are simply getting a lot of traffic to their website. But in any case, it obviously is a popular distribution. Now, the thing about Cachy is that it is built on Arch. And we're going to be talking about Arch a little bit later in this video. But I just want to get into a couple of things here. So to be clear, I have not used CachyOS myself. I'm just checking this out because it is so popular. But what I get out of this is that it's very performance-based. It's very focused on this kind of performance. CPU optimized package repository. So they will compile their own packages with some optimizations in them to make them even more efficient or even faster on your computer. So this is, of course, a good thing in many ways. But honestly, like in my personal usage of Linux, my experience is that no matter what I install Linux on, the performance is already really good. Like I have never experienced that my devices were too slow or that I have had problems with performance. Well, the caveat here is that I am basically a workaholic, so I work all the time. So I'm not thinking about any gaming or anything like that. But I just write code and build containers and that kind of stuff. So I have never really needed any sort of performance tuning or anything like that. And I also mostly use modern devices like my Framework laptop, my Framework desktop, etc. I personally don't really see a need to use CachyOS. I would rather go straight for Arch Linux, which we're going to be talking about in a second. But the next Arch-based distro that we're going to cover is Omarchy. Now, Omarchy, I have a few things to say about. You see, the reason why I like to use Linux is so that I have control over my operating system and I can build it out slowly the way I want it. So if you're downloading something like Ubuntu or Fedora, or anything like that, yes, there are going to be some applications included with it, right? There is some pre-configuration that is happening. But what I don't like about Omarchy is that it packages proprietary software with the distro that is biased to the creator, okay? And I have nothing against Mr. DHH. I have a lot of respect for him and everything I've built. So this is not a personal attack or anything like that. I am just looking at the facts here. So Omarchy is a distro that is built to be beautiful. Okay, so what you have this sort of scene on the internet of people who like to put a lot of time and effort into making their desktops beautiful, a phenomenon called rising. And I have also been guilty of spending hours and hours on this. So what happens is that people like beginners or people who don't have much experience with Linux, they will go on YouTube and then they see people like me using this super efficient Linux setups that they are all using from the command line only, or the keyboard only. They're moving around very quickly and they think, oh, I want that too. But the truth is it takes a lot of skill and effort to create something like that from scratch. And then Omarchy basically provides a hack, a way to easily get that started. So if you look at the demo video here, then it's sort of optimized to show this kind of workflow that you see the professionals use all the time, where you have a terminal open and then he opens up a second terminal with lots of cool stuff happening inside of it. And beginners, they look at this and they think, oh, this is really cool. This is professional Linux usage. If I do this, then I will land a job, right? But that is basically not the case. But this is what it's optimized for, to be beautiful. But here are the problems that I have with Omarchy. So first of all, it uses Arch Linux, and I cannot for the life of me understand why someone would create a Linux distribution that is tailored to beginners and then choose Arch Linux to do that. Because Arch Linux historically has been rather unstable, right? I've run it for many years, and I've had some problems during those years. So if you are a beginner, you want to use something that is more stable, like Fedora, Ubuntu, or Linux Mint. You don't want to be running a system that is basically consisting of lots of bash scripts just cobbled together and somehow thinking that this is going to be stable. You don't want to use Arch Linux for this. And we're going to talk about Arch Linux in the next section. And then there are some more problems with Omarchy, because if you go to the applications, then it includes things like OpenCode, Cloud Code as the default agent harness. So it's already going to install agents, AI agents for you. It has shell tools installed for you. But then we go into GUIs. So it installs Obsidian, Local Sand, Signal, like all of this stuff, like Kden Live. And a video editor. I mean, how many people need a video editor by default? It's only a very small subset of people that need a video editor. But if you download Omarchy, you're gonna get a video editor included, like taking up space. And I'm getting a little bit heated up already. But then there are commercial apps and services. So there's 1Password included, Spotify, Dropbox, NordVPN. I mean, come on, this is like so obvious, okay? Like Mr. DHH, he is rich already, and I don't think that he does this for making money, but come on, you see all the YouTubers shilling NordVPN, and then he includes it as in his Linux distribution. Obviously, he is getting some kickback out of this. It includes a Windows VM. Like the whole point is to get away from Windows, so throw away those crutches. And if you do not know, DHH is the founder of both Hey and Basecamp. So, and these applications are shamelessly included in this distro as well. So Hey is an email and calendar service, and Basecamp is project management service, so something like Slack, etc. And it's all shamelessly included in the distro. So, I mean, I respect the business decision. I'm a businessman myself, so I respect where this is coming from. You create something cool, you create a distro, and then you include your own applications in it. Like, I fully understand it. But do I recommend people to use this? No. This goes completely against the Linux experience that I want to have, which is to have free and open source software as much as possible that I installed on the system and I have control over. I think Omarchy is a bloated mess. And if a bloated mess isn't enough, the final nail on the coffin is that it basically teaches you bad practices if you want to become a competent Linux user. Because Omarchy, out of the box, changes the default tmux prefixes, for example. And this is a pet peeve of mine that I can get very angry about. But if you want to become a tech professional who is proficient on the command line, then you do not change the default key bindings on tmux, okay? Trust me, as a senior DevOps engineer who has spent Friday afternoons, weekends, sweating on the command line because an application with thousands of users was down. If you are in a high-stress situation, you do not want to be thinking about the key binds and be on a server that has different key bindings than what you are used to. This is bad practice, and because of this, I think Omarchy is a pile of that no one should use, which is bloated, comes with proprietary software that you don't have control over, and it teaches you bad practices if you want to learn Linux. So Omarchy, don't use it, skip it, and you're much better off going for Arch Linux, which is going to be the next distro I'm going to talk about. So the previous two distributions we just talked about were CachyOS and Omarchy, and both of those are based on something called Arch Linux. And Arch Linux is very close to my heart. I have run Arch Linux for multiple years, and it was very painful to go away from it, but I just wanted a change. But I still think that this is the ultimate Linux experience. So Arch Linux, basically all it provides you is a blinking cursor. It is super, super minimal. And this is what I recommend if you want to become a proficient Linux user, is that you first start with Ubuntu, for example, but when you get your chops after you do my free 8-hour Linux course, the link in the description, if you do that, then you're ready for something like Arch Linux, where you're going to be building out your whole system from scratch. And this is exactly what I teach my paid students in KubeCraft. Like people who want to become DevOps engineers, I force them to go through the process of building and encrypting an Arch Linux distribution system from scratch. And the best thing about this is that everything that is going to be on your Arch Linux system is there because you put it there. You are in full control over everything that's running on there. And if you do it properly, like I teach my students, then you will have a deep understanding of why it's there and how it's configured. And this is why Arch Linux, to me, is the ultimate Linux experience. If a junior DevOps engineer comes to apply with me and he has been running an encrypted Arch Linux system for many years, or let's say several months, then I already have a sense of, okay, this person has a certain baseline level of skill on Linux. And that is what I will look at. If you use Omarchy, yes, you are using Arch, by the way. I'm using Arch, by the way, and that's why people will install Omarchy, because then they are part of the Arch Linux club. But if a junior comes to me and says, yeah, I run Arch Linux, and I ask him, how did you build it? And he says, yeah, I installed Omarchy. Then, okay, well, then I know that this person is not skilled in Linux, okay? So if you want to get skilled at Linux, if you want to land a 6-figure tech job, then Arch Linux is the way to go. This is the one that I recommend for people to learn. It is very hard, but the Arch Wiki is great. That is actually one of the main advantages of using Arch Linux, because the Arch Wiki is one of the best Linux resources on the internet. And by using and installing Arch Linux, you're going to get familiar with it. Like even now, if I have a problem on Fedora or whatever, I will go to the Arch Wiki first to check out if I can find a solution there. So this is the one I recommend if you actually want to get good at Linux. And the final distribution we're going to look at is NixOS. So this is something really special, and it's definitely not for beginners. Like, don't even think about this if you are a beginner. But what's really cool about NixOS is that basically you are writing your entire operating system as code. To be honest with you, like I have been resisting the urge to get into NixOS for many years already. The reason why I personally haven't started using it yet is because it has very little industry relevance. And as I said to you, my viewpoint of choosing a Linux distribution very often is this going to contribute to my career? Is this going to contribute to my development as a DevOps engineer who wants to land a 6-figure job? And the reality is that NixOS is not used very much in the field. However, there are a few things happening here. Like I used to rant a lot about NixOS being irrelevant, and I had some very strong takes on this. And I think it is mostly true still, but there is a piece of information that I discovered recently, which is that France plans to replace Windows with a hardened configuration built on NixOS. Like historically, NixOS has only been used in very tech-forward AI companies or finance companies. If a company starts using NixOS, they are really on the front, and you don't really see this in large enterprises or governments, which usually just rely on Red Hat or Canonical. But now that France plans to use something like this with NixOS, this is changing my tune a little bit on NixOS. So this lack of industry adoption is the reason why I usually don't recommend NixOS. And the second reason is that to use NixOS, you basically have to learn a complete programming language. And to me, this is actually super interesting. Like I'm a DevOps engineer, so I love infrastructure as code, and I would love to manage all of my machines as code. Like I totally get why my comment section, whenever I make a Linux video, is full of people saying, you should use NixOS. But to me, at this point in my career, it doesn't really make sense for me to spend many hours learning a complete programming language from resources that are frankly not very good. Like, I tried a little bit, but the documentation isn't as accessible. And I have talked to many people who said that the NixOS community is not a good place to be. Like, I haven't experienced this myself, but this is what I've heard, that it is very hard to learn from the community and their documentation. So for me, putting that time investment into it doesn't make sense because I want to have industry relevance. So I am much better off keeping my experiences to Ubuntu, Fedora, that kind of stuff that is actually industry applicable. But with the programming, like these days we have AI agents, right? So I could learn this super fast with AI. And yeah, I have to be honest, like I am super itchy to start using this, but this is a very advanced way of running your Linux machines that does not have much industry relevance. So should you use it? 99% of the cases, I would say no, don't use it. So those were my distro reviews. Let me know in the comments what you think. Which one of these are you going to be picking and which one stood out to you most? Did this video help you at all making a choice? And remember, if you're a beginner at Linux and you want to learn from a professional who has used it for over 12 years and who is teaching people how to land jobs with Linux, you can get my free 8-hour course completely for free. The link is in the description below. If you join, you get access to a community of over 5,000 people learning this together, helping each other. And it's a premium 8-hour video course, which is the same stuff that my paid students get. So check out the link in the description. It's completely for free. It's my gift to you because I want as many people as possible to experience the joy of using Linux. It changed my life and it will change yours too. Check out the free 8-hour course in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.